Good afternoon, I'm when you're watching A News. Now, the major stories make headlines today. US President Donald Trump says he wants a fair trade deal with China. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky said that ceasefire with Russia could begin even today if Moscow is pressured to act. Netanyahu pledged a forceful response against Yemen's Houthis and Iran after a missile struck near Israel's main airport. US President Donald Trump made clear that securing fair trade agreements remains a top priority, particularly with China. He stressed that high tariffs have effectively halted trade with Beijing, leading to significant financial gains for the United States.
US President Donald Trump on Sunday said the US was meeting with many countries, including China, on trade deals, and his main priority with China was to secure a fair trade deal. Trump told reporters aboard Air Force One that he had no plans to speak with Chinese President Xi Jinping this week, but US officials were speaking with Chinese officials about different things.
Well, you know, I want a fair deal with China, but China's been ripping us off for many years, so maybe something should be thought about, you know, a little bit of retribution. China's been ripping us off for many years, ever since they started. To me, I think it was the worst thing that Richard Nixon ever did. And it was Nixon, you know, he's the one that got it started. Thank you very much, everybody.
Trump also emphasized that while the US is negotiating with many countries, he ultimately plans to establish his own deals. He stated that the United States is no longer engaging with China, claiming that the tariffs are so high they effectively prevent any meaningful trade, which he argued is saving the US billions of dollars. Earlier this year, the US finalized a new wave of tariffs targeting Chinese electric vehicles, batteries, solar panels, and critical minerals, citing the need to protect American industries. In response, China imposed retaliatory tariffs of up to 125% on a range of US goods. Both sides have hinted at the possibility of reopening trade talks, but no formal negotiations have been announced yet. The retaliatory measures are already weighing heavily on bilateral trade and raising concerns over broader economic impacts.
US President Donald Trump announced on Sunday a 100% tariff on all movies produced outside of the United States. In a post on Truth Social, he said he was trying as a US trade representative to protest the institution of the tariff because the United States movie industry is dying a very fast death. Trump blamed other countries offering incentives to attract filmmakers and studios. The US leader stated that this is a concerted effort by other nations and therefore a national security threat. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky said the ceasefire with Russia could begin even today if Moscow is pressured to act. His remarks came during his visit to Prague.
Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky stated on Sunday that a full ceasefire with Russia could be achieved at any moment and called on Kyiv's allies to intensify pressure on Moscow to help make it a reality. Speaking at a joint press conference in Prague alongside Czech President Petr Pavel, Zelensky suggested that a 30-day ceasefire would offer a genuine opportunity for diplomacy to succeed.
We believe that ceasefire is possible at any moment, even starting today, and should last for at least 30 days to give diplomacy a real chance.
Zelensky dismissed recent Russian statements about a partial ceasefire as disingenuous, citing a surge in assaults on Ukrainian positions.
For example, in the past days, they have been saying that they want some partial ceasefire, but you should know that number of assaults these days was the highest in the past months. They conducted more than 200 assaults. If anyone still believes them, they can test it.
He reiterated support for a US-backed proposal for a full and unconditional ceasefire and stressed the importance of Western unity. On military cooperation, Zelensky praised Prague's ammunition initiative and said Ukraine expects to receive 1.8 million shells in 2025.
We count that cooperation will be as effective as it was last year, Tomorrow we will hold meetings with Czech defence companies, and we are working on more details.
Meanwhile, Ukraine faced a fresh wave of Russian drone strikes on Sunday. At least 11 people, including 2 children, were injured in Kyiv, and multiple fires broke out in residential buildings. Ukraine's emergency services deployed 76 firefighters as falling debris sparked fires in Obolonsky and Sviatoshinsky districts. The military said 69 out of 165 drones were shot down, and dozens more were neutralized via electronic warfare. There was no immediate comment from Moscow.
In Romania, far-right candidate George Simeon has taken a strong lead in the first round of the presidential election rerun, winning over 40% of the vote. Liberal Bucharest Mayor Nic Sordan followed in second place with around 21%, advancing to runoff set for May 18. The election is being closely watched across Europe and the US, seen as a test of rising Trump-style nationalism within the European Union. The regional election held 6 months ago was annulled due to alleged campaign fraud and suspected Russian interference. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has vowed to retaliate against Yemen's Houthis and Iran at a time and place of its country's choosing. This comes after a missile fired by the group struck Israel's main airport, escalating tensions and disrupting flights. The Houthis later announced plans to impose a comprehensive aerial blockade on Israel by repeatedly targeting its airports.
Speaking in Jerusalem alongside Cyprus President Nikos Christodoulides, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu condemned the attack near Israel's main airport. He said that Israel would respond to the Houthis and issued a direct warning to Tehran.
As far as the trade routes, obviously we're being challenged. The whole world is being challenged by the Houthis, including in the dastardly attack they did today near Ben Gurion Airport. We will not tolerate it. We will take very strong action against them. And we always remember that they act with their patron Iran's direction and support. We will do what we need to do to take care of our security, to respond effectively, and to give Iran a due warning that this cannot continue.
The comments followed a missile launched by Yemen's Houthi rebels that struck near Ben Gurion International Airport on Sunday, landing close to a parking lot by Terminal 3. The impact triggered panic inside the terminal and briefly halted all air traffic. 4 people were injured by the blast and 2 others were hurt while seeking shelter. The incident marks a rare and alarming breach of Israeli airspace. Local officials displayed the impact site, pointing to a crater described as tens of meters deep and wide. The Houthis claimed responsibility, describing the attack as retaliation for Israel's intensified military campaign in Gaza. In a later statement, the group threatened to enforce a comprehensive aerial blockade by continuing to target Israeli airports. Airport operations were temporarily suspended and sirens sounded across several regions. While flights later resumed, several major international airlines, including Lufthansa, Air France, Delta and ITA Airways, cancelled their upcoming services to Tel Aviv. According to Israeli media, both the long-range Arrow missile defense system and the US-supplied THAAD battery failed to intercept the projectile. Military and intelligence officials are now investigating the breach in air defences. Netanyahu is expected to meet with senior ministers and defense chiefs to determine Israel's next move.
Israeli officials have confirmed that the Security Cabinet unanimously approved a plan to expand the military offensive in Gaza. This decision follows a military's move to call up tens of thousands of reservists to intensify operations. The Israeli Defense Forces say their objective is to increase pressure on Hamas and ensure the release of hostages held in the territory. Under the latest plan, troops will be sent into new areas of Gaza with orders to dismantle all Hamas infrastructure both above and below ground. The Security Cabinet also approved a new air aid disruption plan for Gaza, though it's unclear when supplies will enter the enclave. Iran's Foreign Minister Abbas Araqchi visited Pakistan and India, the part of Tehran's regular consultations with neighboring countries. The trip signals Iran's continued engagement in regional diplomacy amid shifting geopolitical dynamics. Araqchi arrived in Islamabad on Monday to meet senior officials and discuss bilateral ties, regional and international developments. He also scheduled to visit India later in the week, according to Iran's Foreign Ministry spokesperson Ismail Beghai. Now joining us is Dr. Atik Alman, professor at the National University of Modern Languages, Islamabad. Good afternoon, Professor.
Thank you so much for inviting me.
So, given the long history of India-Pakistan tensions, particularly along the line of control, would you say this latest phase is unfolding in a familiar pattern?
Yeah, thank you so much for inviting me to express my view. The recent, the crisis between India and Pakistan, the both states having a long history of the conflict and the disagreement on different points, mainly the territorially adjoining areas and the disputed area of the Kashmir. But the recent episode, there's a tragic incident which has terrorist incident happened under the Indian controlled or Indian occupied Kashmir. But unfortunately, the Indian leader, while witnessing the tragic incident, they very quickly posed the responsibility of that incident on Pakistan. That's really unwise. I mean, a country, while observing definitely a tragic incident and the loss of life, without having the sufficient proof, without having the sufficient evidence and the convincing argument, very swiftly within an hour, within the few minutes, it launched the first information report, the police report against Pakistan. So then after, definitely the government of Pakistan and the Pakistan nation is very much prepared to defend all kinds of threats, and whilst defending its sovereign values and the respectful standing in the region, asked the government authorities asked to their Indian counterparts about the logical evidence and the convincing proofs of the incident, but the Indian government is unable to cooperate in that, and in this way the tension escalated between the two countries. And now we'll see if the Indian government is not going to adopt a wise strategy while considering the regional security complex environment in their mind and the presence of the two nuclear powers in the region. Then the situation could be considered positively. Otherwise, in other way, it's too difficult to predict what's going to happen in next and in future.
And looking at the broader geopolitical picture, what does the U.S. support for India actually signify? And where do you see the limits of that support?
Definitely in the South Asian regional politics, it's too difficult to separate the presence of the great powers to the role of the great powers, because a long history of the South Asian political development suggests us the great powers always remained the important player in the regional politics. So in this way, in the recent crisis, the initial reaction of the US administration was not so much satisfactory like the statements of the president, but subsequent development showed that the American government is in this time concerned with the emerging tension between the two neighbors. But in addition to the United States, the other superpowers, they can also play their effective role, but adopting impartial and the neutral engagement in the region. Because the South Asian region, where the two nuclear powers are having the decades-long history of the hostile interaction, it needs the mediators or the third parties or the neutral or the international community. So we can say, in other words, the neutral role of international community and the great powers could ensure in the region the scope of peace, stability, and development.
Thank you, Professor. Thank you for your answers. Skype, once a household name in global internet calling, it's ringing for the last time. Microsoft is officially retiring the platform today.
Skype will be permanently shut down on the 5th of May, ending a 21-year run that transformed how people connected across borders. Microsoft, which acquired Skype in 2011 for $8.5 billion, says the move will streamline its communication services and help focus resources on its now dominant Teams platform. Launched in 2003, Skype revolutionized audio and video calling and boasted hundreds of millions of users at its peak. But its popularity declined sharply with the rise of more mobile-friendly and reliable apps like Zoom and Slack. Industry analysts say Skype's underlying tech wasn't built for the smartphone era, a key factor in its fall from relevance. During the pandemic, Microsoft pushed Teams as its go-to business communication tool, integrating it with Office apps to win over corporate users once Skype's core base. Microsoft declined to share current Skype usage figures. The platform had dropped to around 23 million monthly users by 2020, a far cry from the 150 million it had when Microsoft bought it. Skype users can now log into Teams with their existing credentials. Contacts and chats will be automatically migrated, and Teams is already serving more than 320 million monthly users globally. No job cuts are expected as part of the transition.
The Russian Prime Minister Alexander Turchin has arrived in Azerbaijan for an official visit that includes talks with President Ilham Aliyev and Prime Minister Ali Asadov. The visit aims to boost bilateral ties and economic cooperation, with several contracts expected to be signed at a Belarus-Azerbaijan Business Forum. Turchin will also visit the key sites in Baku, including a joint elevator production plant. Together with Asadov, he will tour reconstruction sites in Fuzuli and Ardan, where Belarus will donate a utility vehicle to support rebuilding efforts. The next meetings of the 3+3 regional cooperation platforms should be held in Baku and Yerevan, and the order of rotation to be determined by the parties themselves, according to Russia's ambassador to Armenia, Sergei Kopyrkin. He also said the decisions about the South Caucasus should be made by the region's own countries. The ambassador pointed to high-level contacts between Armenia, Azerbaijan and Russia from 2020 to 2022 and the 2021 launch of a trilateral group aimed at reopening trade and transport links. He said Moscow supports the 3+3 platform, which includes regional neighbors like Iran and Turkey, and called for expanding cooperation, particularly among Russia, Armenia and Iran on economic and humanitarian issues, while strengthening these efforts should not replace existing agreements. Now joining us is the head of the Department of the Center of Analysis of International Relations, Vasif Husseinov from Baku. Good afternoon, Mr. Husseinov.
Thank you for having me.
So, Mr. Husseinov, how significant is a 3+3 platform for fostering regional cooperation and stability in the South Caucasus, especially amid shifting geopolitical dynamics?
3+3 platform is an initiative that was proposed after Second Karabakh War in 2020, and at that time it was supported by Azerbaijani and Turkish presidents, with the hope that it will bring about new positive dynamics in the South Caucasus, will push for reconciliation in the region, and open communications and transportation links will contribute to this process. But unfortunately, over the past 5 years since that time, we haven't seen much in that direction. Number one obstacle has been the refusal of the Georgian side to take part in any formats which includes Russia due to their conflict. And after this, after Georgia's refusal, we haven't seen any significant progress, and the initiatives for meetings have remained at low level. And we don't have any tangible evidence to show that the situation has changed, or in the future Georgia would initiate, would agree to join this format. And under these circumstances, the chance for success within 3+3 platform are limited.
And what are the main challenges and opportunities facing the 3+3 initiative now?
You know, the main challenge, as I said, is the refusal of the Georgian side to participate in this format. But at the same time, along with Georgia's refusal, there are also tensions within the countries, particularly external powers that includes Russia, Iran, and Turkey. In order for this format to activate, to perform as envisioned after the Second Karabakh War, we need modus vivendi amongst the countries that participate in this format. And therefore, at this moment, we don't have it. And this is one of the reasons why I have encouraged the South Caucasian countries to invest more in trilateral cooperation within the South Caucasus. Last month, it was the first time we observed a real step towards trilateral cooperation in the South Caucasus, which include the three countries of the region, Armenia, Azerbaijan, and Georgia, when there was the first meeting at the level of deputy foreign ministers that took place in Tbilisi. But it doesn't mean that it is going to replace the 3+3 initiative anytime soon, because this initiative can indeed bring peace and prosperity to the South Caucasus, particularly because the regional countries, most of them agree on the point that the problems of the South Caucasus need to be resolved by the countries of the region without external intervention. And the 3+3 is such a platform which can open up good opportunities for communication amongst the countries of the region and with direct neighboring countries. And it can indeed positively contribute to a peaceful negotiation of all disputes, as well as can open up good opportunities for economic cooperation.
Thank you. Thank you for being with us today.
Thank you.
Uzbekistan and Afghanistan have signed a landmark agreement on Amudarya River Basin management. Our Tamim Bahiz bring us more from Kabul, Afghanistan.
Uzbekistan and Afghanistan have signed a significant agreement on the joint management of the Amu Darya River Basin and the efficient use of its water resources. The deal was formalized during a visit by the Uzbek delegation to Afghanistan, with both sides also discussing mutual trade. The signing of the agreement between Uzbekistan and Afghanistan opens up opportunities for creating joint working groups on water resource management, developing monitoring and data exchange mechanism, and introducing modern water conservation. This agreement marks a strategically important and timely step towards regional cooperation. In a region historically affected by water disputes, it reflects a growing willingness to manage shared resources through dialogue, coordination, and mutual respect. Beyond its environmental focus, the agreement links water management with agricultural trade, promoting both sustainability and economic interdependence, critical pillars for long-term regional stability and development. This is a promising example of how transboundary cooperation can turn potential conflict into opportunity for shared growth. This is Tamim Bahiz in Kabul for A News.
Iran has tested a new salt-fueled missile that is more maneuverable and can evade U.S. and Israeli air defense systems. That's according to Iran's Defense Minister General Aziz Nasirzadeh. The test was conducted on April 17 and state TV aired footage showing the missile striking its target with precision. Minister Nasir Zadeh said the missile was upgraded following last year's true promise operations against Israel. He warned that if Iran is attacked, it will respond with force, including targeting U.S. bases in the region. The comments follow Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu's vote to retaliate against Iran after a Houthi missile landed near Israel's main airport. A delegation led by Azerbaijan Deputy Prime Minister Samir Sharifov visits Syria. Sana agency reports that members of the Azerbaijani delegation met with Syrian Minister of Economy and Industry Mohammed Nidal al-Sharar as part of the visit. At the same time, Azerbaijan officials were received by the interim president of Syria, Ahmed al-Sharaa. Today, Baku hosted an international conference on Azerbaijan's pharmaceutical industry organized by the Health Ministry and Embassy of Hungary. Speakers highlighted the history of iodine and hormone drug production, legal reforms and new industrial projects. Hungarian Ambassador Tamás Torma said pharmaceuticals are a key part of Azerbaijan-Hungary ties and noted plans for boost university cooperation. The sector's importance for healthcare, the economy and innovation was stressed. Piralahi Industrial Park's role in local production and the medical university's growing research efforts were also emphasized during the conference. A centuries old tradition took center stage in Baku as the International Carpet Festival concluded in the city's historic core. The event drew international attention with its vibrant showcase and cultural heritage, artistry and live craftsmanship.
Baku's streets have come alive with vibrant carpets and cultural exchanges as the International Carpet Festival transforms İçerişehir into a vibrant hub of art, tradition and global craftsmanship.
In the heart of the capital, this three-day celebration of carpet weaving brings together artisans and experts from around the world, including Turkey, Pakistan, Tatarstan, Uzbekistan, Kazakhstan, Iran and various regions of Azerbaijan. The festival honors centuries of tradition while encouraging international exchange through live weaving demonstrations, exclusive exhibitions, musical performances and public masterclasses by those who have been in this craft for decades.
I am 74 years old. Throughout my life, I've woven special Somak carpets. For many years, I worked in Kusar and later taught weaving to students in Alpen village. For the past 2.5 years, I've been weaving in Guba. These two Somak carpets here were woven by me. Nowadays, few people weave Somak carpets, so I continue this craft for everyone.
At the national pavilions, visitors explore carpets from across the world, each showcasing the weaving styles and design traditions of its country. The displays range from Kyrgyz tribal motifs and Kazakh designs to Uzbek craftsmanship, Tatar styles, Georgian traditions, and symbolic patterns from Pakistan.
Our carpets are inspired by the same design theory, which is Central Asian or Western Asian. But with the passage of time, we have made some interventions which are purely South Asian. So ours is a combination of these things. Second thing is that we use 100% natural materials in our carpets. Like the wool is pure lamb's wool, which is spun locally. It's not on the machines. Similarly, the dyes or the pigments that we use are drawn from nature, from like herbs, from fruits, from trees.
Among the distinguished visitors is Princess Lala Hasna of Morocco, a country which has rich carpet weaving traditions of its own. Invited as an honorary guest to İçerişehir, she was briefed on the carpet's cultural significance and the enduring global reputation of Azerbaijani weaving. Carpets from across Azerbaijan are displayed throughout the festival, showcasing the unique characteristics of various regional styles.
From bold patterns to delicate details, these carpets reflect the identity of entire regions. Each one is handmade, carrying the story and the skill of its weaver.
Each region brings its own symbols, colours, and weaving techniques passed down through generations.
The two carpets we are standing in front of date back to the 18th and 17th centuries. One is the famous dragon carpet from Karabakh, and the other is a Kila Afshan carpet, characteristic of the Baku school. Creating these carpets took years of painstaking effort, and they are faithful reproductions. In other words, these carpets have been brought back to life in both pile and flat weave forms.
This new project, this carpet, is called Architecture of Memory. It's about childhood memories in the old city, about wandering around, getting lost in the narrow streets, unable to find your way out or reach your destination. It's also based on childhood experiences because all children in Azerbaijan used to sit on carpets to play with their toys. When you sit on this carpet, you realize it's not just a carpet. You are climbing the stairs, and your task is to choose the right path. This carpet is all about that.
This year's festival is especially significant, marking 25 years of Ichere-Sheher's UNESCO World Heritage status and 15 years since Azerbaijani carpet weaving was listed as UNESCO Intangible Cultural Heritage. Gulchin Kojalieva, Natig Mammadov, a news from Baku, Azerbaijan.
Thanks for spending a moment with AIR News. Until we meet again.